7:05. And we're going to take the agenda out of order so that we can talk to baseball first since they're here.
All right. Dave, I'm moving you over right now. There he is.
Hi there.
How we doing?
I'm good. How are you all?
Good. Happy New Year.
Good. Happy New Year to you too. I was hoping that I would get to see you all in person, but things have changed a little bit since we first asked to join you.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so Dave, so I know you wanted to kind of give an update on baseball in general and some other things we want to chat about. So I'll just move it to you if you want. Do you
Yeah,
need
that's
the
great.
screen share or anything like that?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I put together a few slides to help us go through that. So I will do that right now. Let's see if this works.
Yeah, just gave you permissions.
All right. All right, can you all see that screen?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
great. I'm not the best tech person in the world, so if something goes wrong, just give me a shout out. So first off, thank you for having me. For those that don't know me, my name is David Fialco. I am now the president of Algonquin Baseball and Softball Association. For a very short time, I was the president of Southborough Little League, but our league with Northborough is now merged. So that's our name of our organization going forward. A couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about was the update on that merger, an update on our field needs in Southborough. We wanted to check in to see where we were with the lights on Eric Green. And then we wanted to share with you some information about our field expenses, a comparison of those expenses to other towns, and then leave you with our ask, which, you know, I know there's probably a bit to talk about there, so we can follow up in the future. The next slide here, I hope that changed on your screen, did it?
Yep.
Okay, great. So our merger with Northborough was completed. It's legally effective now as far as the Commonwealth is concerned, and we're now formally known as the Algonquin Baseball and Softball Association. And what does this mean for our field needs in Southborough? The reality is not too much is going to change. We're going to have roughly the same number of baseball players in terms of use of the field. So while we're adding a league, Northborough has fields too. So the use of the fields won't really increase at all. For the AAA majors and juniors and seniors levels, so this is anywhere, AAA can be anywhere from 8, but mostly 9-year-olds up through majors is up to 12-year-olds, and then juniors and seniors are 13, 14, and 15. Those leagues will be fully integrated, meaning the teams for Algonquin baseball will be mixed. There'll be kids from Northborough, kids from Southborough, and coaches mixed as well. For the younger leagues, so AA and single A and T-ball, those are going to be only in each town. So all the Southborough teams will be just the Southborough kids. And that's just to lessen the impact on younger kids and families moving forward. The biggest impact that we think this merger will have in terms of our field needs is softball. And that's because while Northborough always invited, and we've had a lot of participants from Southborough in Northborough's softball, with the merger, you know, we expect that softball will become even more popular in Southborough. So we definitely see, one, we've already seen Southborough numbers on the rise, but we think they're going to rise even more. And so the field needs might change in that regard. As you know, we currently use the following baseball fields. At the Mooney Complex, we have Schifrin Field, we have Eric Green Field, and then Miners is the field that's furthest away from the school, which we recently completed the renovation for baseball with a really nice looking infield turf. I'm not sure if anyone got to see it in the fall. And then the younger leagues play also at Finn 2, which is the field up top closest to the school, Fayetteville and Neary. We got some feedback on what I'll call the Fayetteville infield repairs. It hasn't been particularly favorable. There's complaints about the content of the mixture there, but for the younger kids, they're not sliding quite as much as others. And then lastly, for baseball, juniors and seniors play on the Mooney, the big diamond in the far back. And that's a field that we've been responsible for upkeep, even though a lot of other programs and Trotter and others use that field as well. In terms of softball, we're looking at, I was speaking with Lisa Hodge, who runs the program from Northborough, and with Mike Murphy, from former president of Southborough Little League, who's been getting more involved with softball. It looks like they're going to need 2 fields for this year. And Woodward is a really good field for them when it's playable, but the drainage is pretty tough on that field. I know last year was exceptionally wet. I actually play in the men's softball league, so I know what that field is like, but some are concerned about its ability to drain, and we're not sure if that was, just a unique season of rain or if there is a drainage issue there. And the younger girls are able to play softball on that Fin 2 field, but it's too small for the older girls. So what we're looking for is if available 2 fields that we can play softball on in Southborough. And one of the questions was asked of me was that there was, I think a year or 2 ago, some discussion of potentially building or reopening a softball field over behind the Trotter track. And so I didn't know if there was any progress to that or where that stood. I know the needs of softball and Southborough were maybe a little different, but I don't know if Tim, you have thoughts or any information on that.
Yeah, we were moving ahead with it, and then COVID hit, so everything kind of shut down and priorities were kind of repurposed. I have a meeting. We have our usual meeting for kind of like pre-spring meeting with DPW with Chris over there. It was going to be put on the table as well as the one at Neary. I know I talked to Lisa last season when we were talking about alternate options, because I do agree. I think we all know in this room with Woodward, especially last season, with some of the heavy rain we had, it was pretty bad, because there is a drainage issue there with that field. But hopefully bringing Neary back onto a playable status, talking to Lisa, it seems like that would help big time, because she seemed to be a fan of that field.
Oh, good.
And it shouldn't really impede on soccer too much, just given the age of the girls who are going to be using it. So we're going to be looking at that. And then Trotter is just going to be the other conversation. The issue with Trotter, I think it's not as bad, but it's very, very wet back there. I don't know if you've ever walked back there. So it gets rain and it's soft for quite some time. So my fear is if we bring that back up, we may be, not that there's drainage issues, it's just the nature of the land. It's a low spot with the wetlands around it. So it may be more feasible to put the money into Neary right now to bring that back up. But that's going to be the plan for the spring, definitely. So that meeting is already being scheduled. So it's kind of part of our usual rotation with DPW, but that was on the docket to talk about for sure.
That's great. Thank you.
Now, if I can just ask now while we're talking about fields.
Yeah.
So when it comes, as you know, probably know, the permits will be due soon for the spring. So can I expect softball, like will Lisa be going through you all now, or is she still going to be doing a separate? I'm just trying to understand what to expect.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Softball is a part of our league, but Lisa tends to run it. So I think you could probably expect those numbers to come separately, because the registrations are running separately for that. But if it makes it easier for you, I'm glad to have like one point of contact to do that. So whichever is easier for you, Lisa will have the direct information, but if it's easier for you to get it all from me or all from Brian or whoever it is that sends it to you in the past, we're glad to do that.
Okay, maybe I'll connect with Brian and Lisa separately and get them on the same page.
Yeah, not a problem. So that's where our field needs are for this year. Brings us to the point about air clean lights, and Tim, if you could just give us an update on where that stands. And obviously these have been a long time coming. A lot of people have put in a lot of time and effort things up, and we just wanted to do whatever we could to help make sure that when the spring season starts, it gets dark pretty early, so we were hoping to have us ready to go.
Yeah, and we're just as frustrated with you at this point with the fact they're not connected. So we've been kicked around from contact to contact with National Grid. It's been made clear with conversations with Grid that everything we've done has been done. Everything that's needed has been done. So we're struggling to understand what the holdup is on their end. We just got kicked to the engineering department with a gentleman named Dana. He's the one we actually had a on-site meeting with a little while back. So we connected with him, I want to say Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. He said he would get back to us. We haven't heard from him yet. I called our architect today. He hadn't heard back either, but we're hopeful now that it's kicked back to the guy who's usually on site, that we'll get some progress here now. So I wish I had better news, but we're just working through the system, trying to figure it out too. But
Yeah,
it's still moving. So
yeah, I know. I guess to the extent that we can be of any help, I mean, we all work in various industries, and sometimes like my firm, I may have contacts. We might be able to find ways to push this through. So we're glad to do whatever we can do to help you. And if it's just connecting docs or getting the person that's going to tell someone to do it, like, let us know what we need to do. We're ready and willing and able to assist.
for sure.
Okay. All right. So with expenses, I think maybe we did this. Mike and I came to a meeting. I think we were talking about lights, but we also shared some of our field expenses probably back 2 or 3 years ago. And I wanted to give a kind of an update to give rec a sense of a few things, like what we as a league spend on fields, where that money goes to, and what we get. So as Tim was talking about before, there's the permit that we apply for through recreation, and that ends up being, it's a $20 per player per season. And when it all adds up each year for us, that's our spring, summer, and fall seasons. We look at between about $6,000 and $7,000 from us I'm sorry, I should say per year, not per season. We get, the town provides our outfield grass cuts, trash, and I believe the portable bathroom. The field maintenance requirements that we have are actually, much more significant than that. We routinely get compliments on our fields that specifically Sharon and Eric Green, they are some of the best in the area, but it's not cheap to make them that great, and we bear a lot of expense for that. So on an annual basis, it varies a little bit each year depending on need, but our league has spent between $25,000 and $27,000 on field maintenance. A large chunk of that is to a landscaper that helps us with that. But what the town provides in terms of grass cuts isn't anywhere close to maintaining the fields in a good condition. And that annual amount doesn't include some expenditures that we as a league made on those fields. So we've spent, since 2019, over $50,000 of the baseball league's money on field renovations. You may recall we completely redid Schifrin and Eric Green field infields in 2019. So completely scraped everything, regraded, put in an appropriate baseball mixture of clay and dirt, and I think we call it turfus. And then on Schifrin, we made the field a convertible field. So there's little league size, and then there's a 50-70 diamond, and the 50-70 diamonds is essentially in between a little league field and a major league field where the older kids play, and it's a transition field, and it's very attractive to a lot of the AU programs who play on that size field, and then also our 12-year-olds who are making the jump up. So we've also put some money into the big diamond in Mooney, and I think, Tim, you've heard that we've got like trees overgrowing on the sides of Mooney, and we've given that feedback, but it doesn't seem the town's been able to do much in terms of cutting those back. And it really is becoming a safety issue. Like they're completely overgrew our batting cage. And one of these branches falls, it's getting to be pretty precarious. So when we did those renovations, we definitely had the AAU in mind, and perhaps maybe it was short-sighted of us, but we expected to receive some of the benefit that would come from renting out those fields to help us offset some of the costs I've just shared with you. So one of the things that I wanted to leave you with, but I got a little more information before I do that, is see if there's a way to rethink our approach to the fields. As Southborough Little League and now AVSA, we're completely volunteer-led no one get paid, nonprofit organizations. And all of our money goes back to providing baseball and now softball in our two towns. What we learned through this merger is that our towns have a very varying approach to the field costs, although similar expenditures on maintenance, and how they run, what we pay for them, what we get for them, and what we can do with them. I talked a little bit more about, I think as a baseball league, and our focus is solely on baseball, we're generally in a better position to maintain those fields. Like, for example, I gave Fayetteville, when the town got around to trying to improve Fayetteville, the dirt mixture that was used it really just wasn't appropriate, for baseball. And then, some of the other things, like when we did attract some of the AAU programs, so we got Mizuno and Nakona using the fields, what happened is that those programs came in and it ended up being a pretty nice revenue for recreation or the town, or frankly, I'm not sure where the money ultimately goes, but it actually ended up being a loss of money for us, which was not what we envisioned, because when they came in, when it rained, they used our drying agent, they use our chalk, they use our equipment and our tools. And so bringing these field programs in is great. It's just incredible synergies with our league and development for players in our town, but we ended up actually losing money with over 40 bags of drying agent and expense. So that was one of the areas we wanted to revisit as well.
Hey, David, just out of curiosity, how much is that roughly? Does it say there? Sorry if it does.
No, I can get you that number, but my guess is it's a few $100s all in, the drying agent, but I can email Tim the exact dollar amount on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Dave, if I could, just while we're on that whole thing, when I think I was talking to Brian when that AAU thing came to fruition, and my understanding was there was going to be a understanding between you and the groups as well when it came to cost sharing. So did that not come to fruition either?
Yeah, I don't think so. And I actually, my son plays for Mizuno now, and I was over there the other night, and Nate Sorensen runs it, and I started talking to him about it, and I shared with him the same thing, and he goes, "Well, that's not right." And he said, "Well, yeah, I know." And he's like, "Well, we can fix that, et cetera, et cetera." So they're not trying to. I think they just weren't aware. I think like their teams would say, "Oh my gosh, the field's wet. Oh, here's this stuff. Let's use it." And we are doing a lot with them now. Like we're running winter clinics through them, and so there's a lot of stuff going on between the two of us. So there's certainly some benefit coming back to us from Mizuno, but it's not directly tied to the field use. We started with kind of looking at this, and I know Tim, back when you first came over here, we had kicked around this notion of like some other way to do this. Like I think you maybe said like in the past, there's been some like long-term leases and all that, but it got us thinking and talking to, first of all, Northborough was now merged, so we knew what they did, but we wanted to get a sense of like what's going on in these other towns, and is what we're paying and is what we're getting kind of on par, or are we different than them? And what we learned is that we're pretty different. So in Northborough, they have the Memorial Complex, which is lighted, the Casey Field, and then there's Upper Memorial, which is their big diamond, and Lower Memorial, which is another diamond. And they also have what we call a school field. So they have two fields at Peasley, one softball field at Z or Zad, I'm not sure how they say that. Lincoln Street, they have a field, but I guess the drainage is so bad there, they can't even use it. And then Nellican at softball, but they got to coordinate with the rec department. But for all those fields, with one exception, they pay $0 to the town, and they get exclusivity on the fields, essentially. I think if someone asked, they could use them, but nobody does. And they're also able to keep the revenues from if they find others to use the fields. They do pay a little bit to the town from Nellican, which I guess comes out to $2,000 for the entire year, not the season. And they get similar services in terms of grass cutting and trash pickup. In terms of their spend, it's actually quite in line with us on their own field maintenance. So they put on another, $25,000 on average per season to keep their fields up. And again, I mentioned they're allowed to rent out and receive the payments for those fields when they're not using them. I also asked around just to get a better picture of Westboro and Shrewsbury. So for those familiar with Westboro, there's Target Fields, which are the two lighted fields that are directly behind Target on Route 9 in Westboro. Westboro Little League has complete control over the fields. They essentially own them and they don't pay anything for them, but they do handle their maintenance. They're able to rent the fields out and keep payments for them. And then their town also has, again, I call them school fields because they're at schools. They're managed by the town and some are managed by the schools themselves, but all in their annual permits are less than $2,000 a year for those fields. Again, town provides mowing and trash removal, but the league there provides their own portable restrooms. Shrewsbury is actually the one that's closest to how Southborough does it because they also use the per player per per season amount. Their amount's a little less, it's $17 rather than $20. They too put in some major renovations on Dean 1, which is probably their primary Little League field over at Dean Park. They get similar services, but they are able to also rent out and do what they want with the fields once they've got them. So that's sort of the picture of around here. And so, like I said, I think we're a little bit of an outlier there in terms of our costs, what we get as compared to some of the other towns. And so, I leave you with that information and let you know what we're looking for. And what we're trying to look for is some kind of an arrangement that's more in line from a cost structure with these other towns and more equitable in sharing the costs of maintaining the fields and the benefits that come with them. We're open to concepts of long-term leases. If we need to go to the selectmen for that, we're glad to do that. But something that recognizes the extraordinary amount of money, time, and effort that we put into the fields and the revenue coming back. So some of the ways we're looking at this year is obviously we're going to have more bodies. We're going to have Northborough players that are regularly playing on our fields, but they're going to play half their time here and half their time in Southborough. So we don't want to see that amount double just because the field use is going to be the same. It's just going to be different people on the fields. Some kind of revenue sharing for field rentals, at least with respect to the ones that we help bring in, and then just some increased town responsibility for field maintenance. I mentioned like the safety items, like the trees at Mooney and that sort of thing. And I do know that we did request that the infields on at least our three nicer fields not be cut because the heavy equipment wasn't good for the surfaces. But we look forward to talking with you further. I know I've given you guys a lot of information on this, and I'm sure there's some conversations we had, but we're willing to look at any new ideas, any changes that can be made to try to just more equitably, a more equitable deal as it relates to the fields, if it's at all feasible. So I probably went much longer than you guys had hoped, and I'm sorry to keep you from your other business and from your family tonight, but I really do appreciate the time, and I'm glad to answer any questions that you have.
I'll just start. So first off, Dave, thanks for coming and talking about this, especially about the merger and what you guys have been thinking about. If I can just say openly, I think baseball has been tremendous with communication, at least with my office, since I've gotten here, but more so the last year and season, probably 2 cycles of seasons. So thank you for that. I know that, so I'm very familiar with some of our neighbors when it comes to field usage. So, I don't think we're going to make any decisions here. Obviously, I don't think you assumed we would. But I know there's data out there. I know it's easy at my fingertips for me to kind of bring it together and look at what we're doing compared to other towns. I do know I have the costs from back. I remember working with Mike with this about what our cost is of the limited work that we do on those fields with Mooney and the surrounding fields. So I'm happy to share that with you. I can dig that up just to give you an idea. And just to address, I think at least the tree thing, and again, I believe I was talking to Mike with this before he stepped down, is it comes down to abilities of DPW and the machinery of what they have. Specifically with trees, it's not something they touch out of liability sake of dealing with trees. and not having the equipment for it. So I think that was punted kind of, and then I think it just went quiet on that. So I just don't want you to think we weren't trying to help, but it's something I can work with you to revisit. But I guess all I want to say is that I'm more than happy to look into, at least with the cost piece of it, what surrounding towns are doing, and then I'm sure this commission can chat about it a little more and what we see to make sense moving forward, because it's recognized and it's appreciated, the amount of time and effort you guys do put into those fields for sure. So.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't mean any of that to be critical, just as
no.
Yeah. So yeah.
Some things you may have known working with Mike, some things you haven't. So I just figured I'd just throw those couple bullets out before.
Yeah, and
I'm sure you and I will connect offline too and go into it a little more. So
that sounds great. Thank you.
It's Kristen. I mean, I do have some questions, but it's probably in fairness to you and just makes more sense to organize those, via Tim into a comprehensive list, and then we can have the discussion versus kind of randomly throwing questions at you now. I'd suggest that's how we go about it as a commission, but obviously if others have burning questions they want to ask now, we could do that.
Yeah, I'm glad to address them collectively or here, whatever's best for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. We could compile questions because I think from our side, we also have questions about what are we allowed to do? What are the conditions of these fields? Like how many of them do we have full control over versus partial control and things like that we could also sort out just to get more information so we know what's even allowable for these fields. Because I know the softball field over in front of Woodward is Choate Field, which might have different restrictions than the Mooney fields. And then the fields that are on school property also have additional governing. So I think there could be a little work that the commission does with Tim to figure out what can and can't we do, and then have the conversation around, well, then what do we want to do with them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd also be helpful just to get a clear ruling from whomever would be appropriate. But we know that the funds that come in from those fields go to the general fund. They don't go into recreation. So we don't get to deploy those funds on our own. And I believe I don't know if it's a bylaw or whatever, but I don't believe we have the right to allow others to rent those fields for their own return. So I think we can ask that question so that we can answer it and explain why we're different from other towns, because that may not be, people may look at your presentation and say, hey, why aren't they doing what these other guys do? Well, if the bylaw doesn't allow us to do it, then that may be an answer that would be helpful in sharing at least.
Yeah, and that would be helpful because I think there's probably a lot that I don't understand about the bylaws and how things work. But if there's something that I need to go to another board for, I'm glad to do it. But suffice to say that our board, this is something that's on the top of their mind, and so I'm here to raise it. So if this isn't the right place, or if I need to go somewhere else, just let me know and I'll do that as well.
I think this is the right place. I think it's a matter of us understanding. And then if there's bylaws that we think are outdated or should change, I think that we do that together and then move that forward. So,
yeah,
because I think if you go anywhere else, they're just gonna send you back to us. So that's where we can do the legwork to figure out what is true, what is not true, and then what legally we could potentially look to change, and then we'll have to figure out what the end state is, and then how do we get there together, right?
Yeah, that'd be great, because I just learned that the money doesn't go to RAC, it goes to general fund. So that was the first thing I had no idea. So that was interesting. So thank you.
And that's the same, Jay, just so you know, Dave, that's the same across every sport. So I don't want you to think you're being treated differently. So that's soccer, that's lacrosse, that's everybody. So
yeah.
And it's just to give you the other half of it, the debit and the credit, speaking as the finance guy, we don't get the revenue and we don't control the budget on the servicing of the fields either.
Mm-hmm.
That's if I'm not mistaken, Tim, that's DPW right. So we're charged with sort of oversight, but we don't have the purse.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'll look forward to your questions. And if you want me back at another meeting, just let me know and I'll coordinate with Tim to get either answers or come back when you need them.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Dave.
All right.
Good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Kristen, just so you know, keep muting your second device because the feedback keeps coming through.
I was wondering, I'm like, oh, should I shut up? Sorry, I don't know how to, let me see if I can fix that.
All right, just letting you know. So.
All right. So I know we've got a long agenda, but I think we can probably blow through a lot of these fast, is my guess, right, Tim?
Yeah, and if we could just stay on the baseball piece too. Do you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
just want to send me, I think it's a clear picture of some of the things I need to find out town side of who's got the authority to do what, but I guess question wise, you guys just want to shoot them my way and I can throw them together.
Oh, actually, do you have that deck that he just presented?
I don't.
I'm sure we could ask him for it just so we can go back
Yeah.
and reread it and then send new questions. Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. And to answer your question, yes, I think we can get through this. So.
Okay. Okay.
You want me to just go?
Sure. Let's just crank them.
So a lot of this is left over from December, just from some of the things we need to get approved from there. First one being the annual report. Admittedly, it's been submitted just because of the deadline. It can still be edited. So I know I sent it to you guys last month. So I guess the question is if anybody had any corrections. Denise proofread it, so ignoring any grammatical pieces of it. Those have been corrected. But add-ins, retractions, anything that you may want to throw in.
I didn't have any comments.
Yeah. Nope.
Nothing.
Take that as a compliment. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right. Next piece of it. So this is something that I'm hoping we can take a vote on, just because it's obviously pressing. So right now it's the refund policy regarding camp specifically. So right now the department has a 10% refund policy. So if prior to a program starting, if you need to cancel your registration, you can do so with a 10% fee of the total of what that purchase was. That's mainly because we'll get charged, we get charged a percentage of processing. So it covers that as well as just a little extra in case we get into a situation where we can't fill that seat moving forward. Now I put the little narrative on it, but looking towards camp, the idea of refunds became in our office a very big issue. There are people calling the day before, requesting them over the weekend. And the main issue is when we get to a point, especially with camp, where someone asks for a refund so close in advance, it doesn't give us enough time to fill the seat because it's not just calling somebody and enrolling them, it's enrolling them, making sure we get all the information we need, the medical forms, the physicals, the immunizations, everything of that nature. So it became very difficult to, at some points to fill the seats. Some were, midweek, some were, luckily some we could pull off. I think I put into it, we had over 100 weeks of camp turned back that we were scrambling to fill throughout the course of the 8 weeks last year. So Joe, Denise, and I kind of, had a whiteboard session and we were trying to incentivize the idea of, holding on to your camp spots and making it so, if you do cancel, there's a little more of a penalty per se, or something that we can hold that one helps us if, cover our costs, just because, our costs and our cost of camp is based on what our anticipated needs are with staffing and supplies and field trips and everything of that nature. So an increased cancellation fee to help with that. But also, again, kind of to incentivize to be sure that people aren't just canning last minute. So what we came up with as you guys, as I sent you, would be that anything prior to May, we would keep our, this is again, camp specific. This wouldn't be across all programs, as this is our biggest one. Anything prior to May is the standard 10%. During the month of May, which is the month prior to camp starting, it would go up to 15. And then between June and August, which is our camp months, the fee would be 25%. So that's kind of what we came up with, kind of a gradual. Registration opens in February, opens in a couple weeks. So there'll be a lot of time prior to that, hopefully for families to make up their mind if this is what they're going to be doing. But anyways, we're just trying to be hold a little harder ground on this, so that we don't get kind of into trouble at the end from losing so much money if people decide to start turning back seats. So curious on your thoughts, if you agreed or what you want to do.
So I agree.
Rachel, is that better? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, I agree conceptually with everything you laid out, so supportive. And I assume what you're proposing is comparable to what other camps would have. I'm sure it is. So I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, it's comparable, but at the same time, if you look, we're actually generous. I mean, probably about 75% of camps, it's no refunds. Sorry. So even though we're, upping it from what our usual is, the alternative is we would just hold on to the money.
Okay.
But that's not something we feel right doing, if we're being honest. So
My only initial thought, but given what you just shared about other camps, was like, is that going to make people hesitant to sign up in this year of where we don't know what the heck June's going to look like? But if you've been having a wait list and that's what other camps are doing, then, and it wasn't an issue last year, then I guess it'll probably be less of an issue, hopefully this year, that COVID, kind of concern. So I'm supportive of it.
And that was a piece of it too, where we had such an extensive wait list across just about every single week, every single piece of camp, where it was frustrating, where we had these people waiting, calling, days prior, hoping they could get in, and then last minute, just couldn't pull it off. So looking to avoid that.
And do we take payment upon sign up or?
Yeah, full payments due at registration. Yeah.
Okay.
Unless there's a scholarship situation or a family contacts me and we can figure something out, but that's few and far between. So.
I know that's what my kids' camp does. So
Yeah, I think that's pretty normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and signing kids, I mean, it seems like that's expected now, like, especially knowing that things are getting canceled and things are uncertain. I mean, most people have an understanding that programs have to recoup something. So that sounds right to me.
So I'll make a motion unless we think there's further discussion needed.
And just so you know how we're going to implement it, just so people are aware. So we'll post this on the camp page. All this stuff is going to go live on the end of this week. But it's actually going to be upon registration. It's going to be one of the screens you have to click off on that you agree upon registration. So we're not dealing with that, people saying, we didn't provide it or anything like that. So you guys are pretty familiar with our system as you go through the disclaimers and whatnot. One of the disclaimers will be the refund policy that they'll agree to. So it'll be provided to every registration so everyone's aware.
Okay. So then we've got motions. We need a second.
Second.
Did we actually, we didn't actually outline the motion, Jen.
So so you made a motion to approve the refund policy as shared by Tim, right?
Yep.
A copy of that is available on the town website too, for anybody who wants to do it. So.
Yeah, it's in our packet. Yep. Okay, so then roll call vote. Hanson, yes.
O'Day, yes.
Dumont, yes.
Yes.
Dumont, yes.
Well, yes. Let's just agree in order. We'll go Rachel, John, Kristen.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So then you
Thank
should be
you.
all set there, Tim. And when does registration open for us?
Registration starts February 1st.
Awesome.
Brochures, we'll get into it, but brochures with all the information is live online. And then they'll be hitting households maybe next week. They'll be in mailboxes next week. They went to the mail house last Friday. So, and they look real pretty. So I'm excited.
Awesome. All right.
All right, administrative assistant position. So we all know Denise. We all love Denise. Denise has decided to start phasing out her hours. Her husband's entering retirement. So she is going to start phasing out her hours, kind of taking on a little bit less with the eventual ask to kind of part ways with rec, which is heartbreaking if I'm being honest. She's also in Hawaii as we're on this meeting, so I don't feel too bad for her right now. So Denise is going to be doing limited hours. She's already taken a little less hours. She has a new granddaughter, so she's taking care of her 2 days a week. So she's working 3 days a week currently. That's going to continue in February. When she comes back, she'll help with the initial surge that we're expecting with registrations, just because it's camp, but everything else through August. And then we'll have a bigger picture of kind of when she's looking to step away. So Joe and I would like to fill that position. We think it's very much needed, especially in the summertime, especially in late spring, just for day-to-day office work and assistance with kind of some clerical duties of inputting programs, handling registrations, so on and so forth. So more of an FYI that, Denise will be phasing out. Another piece of Denise's job, we all know she worked tirelessly on Heritage Day on summer nights. She really took that on. That's going to be transferred back to me and Joe, which I think is appropriate, given the caliber of the program. So we'll take those back on with her guidance before she takes off. But then obviously whoever takes her spot will help on a limited basis with the planning of that. So that's more just FYI for you, that she'll be leaving soon, and then we'll be probably looking soon. My guess is we'll take a look at the job description if we think we need to tweak. That will come in front of all of us here, and then move forward. So just a heads up on that one.
Budget wise, what we submitted for town meeting, do you think we're covered?
Yeah, Denise was paid out of revolving, 100% out of revolving.
Oh, that's right.
So
Thank you.
There's no impact there.
And do you have 2 dogs with matching sweaters behind you right now?
I do. I do have that.
Very cute.
Okay. I sure do.
That's awesome.
So cute.
So, they're both from Puerto Rico, so they get cold very quickly. So.
It's tough to lose Denise. She's just like a staple,
Yeah.
So, but good for her.
Yeah. No, I'm excited for her. So, and her son just adopted a little one as well and everything. So he's in Colorado. So I know she'll be wanting to get out there more and whatnot. So it'll be great. I'm excited for her. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll have to do something appropriate to thank her for all
Absolutely.
her years of service.
Absolutely. All right. Commission vacancy. I don't know if I want to take this one, but we're down one. So I know that it was mentioned on a selectman meeting recently. So I just want to put it out there in case anybody knew any interested parent, if there's any strategy when we want to go about, anything specific that we want to put out through our website, through our listserv to try to recruit. But we definitely have a vacancy, and I think with more projects coming down the line, it's very important that we try to fill that up, in my opinion. But I didn't know if anybody had any thoughts on that or know anyone who's interested or how we want to approach that.
That's a little bit on me. Jen and I talked about some specific communities to reach out to where we thought there might be some interest. So I will do that like when we hang up, just in time. I think the only thing we should do right now is maybe talk about, again, like we typically do, is there any particular demographic that we feel like we're not representing? Dave obviously did that for us with more of a connection to the senior community. So is that what we're, is there anything in particular that we're looking for when we are posting that's, what we're looking to fill the vacancy? I mean,
I think,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, the only other thing I know we've done in the past is potentially like maybe more of like an engineering spin, right? Someone with that kind of experience as well. With a lot of the projects and stuff like that we are doing, but.
And we talked a little bit about, but Rachel might kind of have us covered there, that strange to say, but some of our kids are going to start aging out of, God, that makes me feel so old. Kind of, not that they age out of the rec programs, because rec is open for everybody, but you know, a large portion of what rec does, some of our kids are aging out a little bit in the next several years. Not you, Jen, you too. So maybe I'm just me and
I'm
Dom.
holding on.
Yeah, I got 6 more months, and then I have both of them at the high school.
Yeah, so that just might be another consideration, but I think it's hard to find volunteers these days also. Yeah. So Jen, I'll post as we talked about, and maybe we give that a little, like a week or so to marinate before we put out, you know, the public, you know, the one through the town.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, so I actually didn't see that BOS. Were they just commenting that we had an opening, or were they taking action or waiting for us to take action?
Well, they took action to accept the resignation of Dave from the commission.
Okay.
So it's just yeah, it might have been on their radars. It may not. I know they've been involved.
I think I was on that call. Yeah. I think I was on the call. Sorry, Tim. And I don't think they specifically really addressed the opening at length.
That's fine. It gives us time to think about it and put it out there, versus in the past, I know it's been they're going to do it if we don't do something fast. So I was curious where we stood. So, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. All right. So next, pay rate update for part-time staff. So I feel like we just did this recently. We just kind of revamped all the job descriptions and the rates and whatnot to get in line with other schedules. But it's at the point now where this is speaking specifically to recreation, specifically to part-time staff, due to the minimum wage increase of the state. Our schedule that we have in the salary administration plan with the personnel board is incredibly underpaid because of that minimum wage. Minimum wage hitting $14.25 as of the turn of the year this year, and then jumping to $15 an hour starting next year. Now, I'm fully aware that we do not need to pay the state minimum. You know, we are only required to pay the federal. However, I can tell you that we're not going to get any counselors. We're not going to get any staff if we're paying, you know, less than $10 an hour or whatever it is, around 10 an hour. So I'm looking to get in line with the state minimum wage. I'm looking to update our schedules based on that. I did talk to the personnel board on the side. I talked to Barry. They are very, very open about it, and they understand. It's really coming to the idea of being competitive and making sure that the staff that's coming back, we can retain them. So they're not looking, you know, to the town over to make a 50 cents more, 75 cents more, anything like that. So two things are going to happen as of right now. So when I was talking to Barry, what he mentioned is, so we know changing the SAP takes place at town meeting. However, if we had to wait to get to the point of hiring beyond where our schedule is, you know, we'd be waiting till July, and we would already have a full staff, and we wouldn't have the authority to offer pay rates that were competitive at that minimum wage point. So Barry did agree that he would take up with the personnel board that they would give me authorization in the current fiscal year to hire above the midpoint of our scale, which typically had to go employee by employee in front of the personnel board for approval. But having my own authority to do so, I can make the offers above midpoint and just report back to the personnel board of the part-time employees that we're going to hire. So that's going to be on the agenda, is my understanding. In not tomorrow, and then the next meeting is tomorrow. It's going to be the one after that. I think it's in 2 weeks. with that. But also what I've done, and I'm actually going to bring it up on my screen, is I've talked to all of our surrounding towns and kind of gauged what they are doing. And we'll see if I can do this. Here we go. Everybody see that? Yep.
Yes.
So up here on the top is our current. So this guy here. So our minimum that we pay is $11.44. And then with the minimum wage, obviously $14.25 and then 15 if we're going out to 2023. The increases of percentage are significant to get us up to that minimum wage piece. So what I did was, if we were going to update the minimum, which are mainly our camp counselors, our boots on the ground employees, I did apply that increase across the board. So it would go to our program coordinator, our supervisors, our camp supervisors, assistant supervisors. So everyone was treated somewhat equally of getting that increase. So that's what our scale would look like with going up to that $14.25, and then also that $15 mark as well. What I am understanding from almost every single town is that everyone is skipping this year and everyone's going straight to 15, just again to be competitive, and to try to attract as many employees as they can, especially those who have beaches and everything like that. So those are really, I think, the two options. I think the best way of doing it, of raising, at least being fair across the board, and making sure that everyone gets the proper increases relative to the minimum wage increase. I will add, for anybody watching, I know we know this here, all of these are paid out of the revolving account, so none of this impacts the town budget. So all of this is self-generated. So we wouldn't have to worry about any budgetary piece on that.
And you would have you factored this inflation? I only ask because I do it every day in my day job. Have you factored this inflation into the cost of the camp for 2022?
Yeah, we did. We based 2022 at $14.50 an hour to be safe. So that's what we've done out. So
just while we're on that topic, just have you? This is again while I have my finance hat on, I expect you sort of. This is not the only area where you've seen inflation in costs to support the camp in all likelihood. Is that sort of also been considered in sort of your rate for 2022?
Give me 1 second, Don. My speaker is being a little funky. Let me just switch off.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, can you just repeat your question, Don?
Yes. So just building what I know you're on this topic, but while we're just talking about it, building on it, this is not likely the only area where you're going to see inflation in this environment, labor being the predominant, but just checking the box, have you contemplated other areas of inflation, vendors, materials, et cetera, in setting the rates for 2022?
Yes, we have. We added about a 20% on top of supplies, vendors, special events, everything like that. So
All right, very good. Just doing my diligence.
I expect nothing less.
So I can speak from a person who works in a company where we're trying to get folks to drive septic pump trucks. Wages are going up. Even without even considering minimum wage. So this is not shocking to me, and I think you should do what you need to do to make sure you have the people to staff the camp, especially given the demand you saw last year and the likelihood of, in all likelihood, I think we all would expect that you'll build off of that this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question to you guys, are we do we want to go year over year? Like, are we happy with 1425 and then jumping up to 15, or do we want to be competitive and going straight to 15?
If we can
Well,
afford it, I say.
Yeah, competitive.
Yep, I agree.
Well, that's why I asked
Yeah.
if you're getting it in your top line. If you're getting it in your top line, then you need to do what you can to make sure that you fill your slots and
Yep.
Okay.
That's what the money's for.
Yep. Great.
Do you, so, well, were you talking about camp later or no?
We can talk now.
I was
We got
just
lots
wondering
more.
if like there's, given that there was a wait list last year, we're waiting to hear what's going to happen with the Southborough Extended Day program, because they currently do not have a license to run their summer camp this summer. So I'm curious if there's any room for like this program to expand, given that there's like, who knows what will happen with that program? There's a bunch of families offset by that too. So
Yeah.
I don't even know if we have capacity to expand.
We definitely do. So the way we're looking at it is we expanded our younger kids. We kind of, our half dayers, we expanded that. We took away some of the CIT seats in hopes that we can expand if there's demand for the regular camp, our regular campers. So we're hiring, we have the minimum set right now of what we did last year. So we had 50 kids per camp, and we're going to hire based on that 50. But at the same time, we're going to stack each camp with extras in hopes that we can go up from there. So we are planning for an exceeded capacity if the demand asks for it. And that planning was done with the cost of camp this year and projecting out what our potential cost would be.
Can you remind me how you, because I'm actually, like, I understand everything you just said and why you did it, but I know that the CIT, what I've heard anecdotally is the CIT program tends to be in high demand too. Is it just based on the capacity that you can have at the location? I just can't recall, how you set that number.
Yeah, that's really it. It's what we're comfortable with, I think. If this was our 5th year at Woodward and our 5th year of doing a combined camp, I would be more comfortable in inflating those numbers even more. But seeing this as year 2, and we're hopeful that the momentum is going to come off of year 1 after the year we had, we think we'll get a little more demand. But I'm not at the point personally where I am confident, just because this program, while rec camp is not a new idea, our camp of what we're doing is still a new idea.
Yeah.
So, we just want to make sure we're going incremental, as we usually do with other programs, just to be sure that we're confident, because we front load. I mean, we hire all of our staff before, we even know we're going to be at full capacity, and we plan for full capacity. So, we don't want to hire 30-40% more than what we actually need. And next thing you know, we're either cutting kids' jobs or going in the red, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. Thank you. Do you need us to vote on this?
Yeah, I guess I would ask for a recommendation to go to 15 an hour and adjust the scale appropriately as shown there.
So I can make the motion to approve Tim's recommendation to adjust pay scale in light of the Commonwealth's increase in minimum wage and the corresponding increases to the grades thereafter.
Second.
Okay, so roll call vote.
O'Day, yes.
Dumont, yes.
Laval, yes.
Hanson, yes.
Yeah, well, that worked.
Thank you. Cool. So when I write that up, I'll just CC you all, just so you see what's going in front of personnel, and then I'll make you aware of the exact time and date of the meeting in case anybody wanted to tune in.
Cool. All right. So budget updates.
Yep. So I sent you all, again, it was in that packet. And and I shot you all the explanation. So the budget didn't really change too much from what we originally voted on the last time we were all together. The only thing that changed of the two new asks, if you recall, we did playground inspections. We wanted to add in as well as a line for the Trails Committee. Trails Committee, the finance team agreed with and put forward to the selectmen. When it came to playground inspections, they cut that in half and they asked that we only budget for the town side and playground, and the school side be responsible for the schools. So couldn't really argue with that. I passed on that recommendation to facilities at the schools, so they are aware of it. So that ownership will be on them when it comes to funding that. So it went down from, we're at a 3.5% increase on our budget ask, which is, overall, and that includes our new salaries and the new ask. So we'll see what happens. The selectmen did ask for explanations of those two items. So those were sent over. I'm not sure if they're going to call us in front to talk about them more, but I know those are what's under consideration. I think is every new ask across every single department, no matter the cost. So I put forth our reasonings for that, and that's that. So we'll see what happens. People are starting to be called in front of advisory. I've yet to be called. I'm starting to take offense to it because I think I'm like the only department who hasn't been called, but at the same time, I'll take it. But I know advisory is digging in and starting to go budget to budget. So if they call me, I'll let you guys know when we're going to be scheduled. And then again, when, if and when we need to go in front of selectmen on that one. And then the pilot, I don't know if we talked about the pilot payment for 9/11 was updated based on the numbers. And that came directly from DCR. I finally got a contact out there and they let us know what that amount was going to be. So it's reflected appropriately for coming in, but we all know that's money in, money out. So nothing crazy there.
No questions there? Good. All right.
Next.
Space needs study updates.
Yeah, so not too much here. So there is a study going on, which I think is going to be made more public next week from speaking to Jason Melanowski. So a little while ago, there was a hired firm in town to come through the town buildings, take a look at what we have, talk to us about our desires of what we would love, ideal space, things of that nature. What I can say is I'm sure you all are aware, they are looking at Woodward as a potential option for town offices and repurposing that school. But obviously that sets off a chain effect of everything else. So not too much of an update here. I was hoping to get in touch with Jason prior. I know him and I chatted a little bit, but nothing really came of it, which is fine. But I think you'll keep an eye out, because my belief is there'll be a proposal put out, or a concept put out soon about the use of Woodward that would affect us. It would move us out of South Union into that building in the future. So more of a heads up on that one, just to keep your ear to the ground, because I'm sure that will light some fires for some people. So.
Speaking of the rec building, I was thinking the other day, so we took advantage of the sledding there.
I could tell the hill was like ice this morning. So
spent like literally 2 hours there, and it was so nice because we met up with friends, but then we actually also met a new couple, someone that ironically we knew each other from Facebook. But I was thinking that's going to be a loss when the building goes. Like that is a nice little spot for people on the south side to meet up. So
yeah.
Maybe they can work that into the negotiations.
And I don't really have enough. I know that the town's looking actively with our building of, again, disposing of it or repurposing it, specifically to affordable housing. We have not been in on that conversation as much as I particularly would like, but I know that there's still talks, no matter what, about the building being disposed of from the town. So hopefully they reach out to us before any decision's made.
Yeah.
I told John Parent to build me like a she shed at the pond behind the tennis courts at Neary. It'd be a nice view. Give me some
Office.
Wi-Fi and air conditioner, and I'll be fine. So, maybe a Technic cable.
Nice. Alrighty then, we have the Activitas study and the landing on next steps. So this was the review of the Choate property for us.
Did we get the updated, did they send us an updated version?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Like back in early December, I think it was.
Yeah, I think that's right. I just wanted to make sure that was the thing I had on my,
Yep. So I don't know if we need an answer tonight or if we punt this to another conversation, but we'll have to figure out like what are we going to do next? How do we move this forward?
So has it been, we haven't yet published those minutes, if I'm not mistaken though, right? That's on the list today to approve, because
Correct.
we
Yes.
couldn't approve
Yep.
them in the last meeting. So
Yep.
they haven't been put out there for anybody to see.
Yep.
I know they could be shared because they're public record, but so I did a little bit of like in advance, just poking around, just getting some feedback, and so the feedback I got was positive. It's interesting. The one we had talked about the nets and not the sort of screen, and the comment was like, wow, we're going to need a bunch of nets there. And so it's interesting how people look at it and see different things as they sort of process it. So I think our next step is to get it published in the minutes, and then we can point people to it more officially, and reach out to the various groups. The feedback I got is, let's try to capture sort of demand as well. So our group's expecting to, sounds like from a baseball, softball perspective, they're expecting greater demand. Are we seeing similar increases in other potential users, whether it be soccer or lacrosse? And so we certainly could sort of just get that informal, call it informal or formal feedback from those particular groups as to what they think.
I mean, I'm thinking back to times when we've gotten together with, the various groups, and conversations being really good versus trying to do this informally, like, one-off.
Yeah.
Maybe,
No,
we
you're spot on. You're spot on. That's just part of the challenge right now. It would be easier to do it in a group.
We'd probably be more likely to get people to join a Zoom, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we could try that. Yep.
It's a lot easier.
I will say I kind of talked to a lot of my colleagues, I guess, around the area, specifically in neighboring towns, of just kind of sharing this with them of, we were talking about what we have on the docket, what we're thinking about. And even with some people in town, when it came to the price, everyone seemed to be shocked that that's all it was. And I know a couple million's a lot of money. But given what we would receive, potentially, hopefully, it was shocking to a lot of people how much it costs in a good way, that they thought it was really low. And I think that just goes to show the site that we have with the lights already in place and the parking and everything of that nature. So I thought that was, I want to say surprising, because I think I had the same initial reaction, that I thought it was lower than I anticipated, but it was good to hear that, my other colleagues who are building these, felt the same way. So.
Was Jason one of those people? Because like what they presumably are going to be putting out, what we want to do almost supports that, right? Like the two complement each other.
Mm-hmm.
You mean Melanowski?
Yeah.
No, I haven't talked to him about it. No.
You mean in the context of the study that is going to be looked at with regards to the utilization of Woodward?
Yes.
Yes, I agree. If you start to make that a center of, activity, then this would complement that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what I'm saying, like, it's just something to think about, you know.
So
in terms of
regarding
timing.
that, now that I apologize, I didn't think of it from that point of the question. When I had my initial meeting with him, we did discuss that, of saying, you know, us looking there and doing what we want to do would complement, especially if we gained a gym and we had, you know, unrestricted access to the building and so on and so forth. So.
Yeah, people want to improve downtown, and I kind of think that's an extension of downtown. I know people are more interested in business and whatnot, but you know, that is a definite improvement to our general downtown area. So could probably get some advocates there as well.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of a group meeting on that.
You saying group meeting as like
Invite a few.
cross soccer, softball, all that?
Yeah, and invite some representatives to come. We can walk through, we'll offer a few minutes to walk through it and take feedback.
Did you say that the recommendation for facilities is coming out? I'm sorry, you just said it, but you think it's coming out shortly?
Shortly, from my understanding. I'm hearing that secondhandedly.
Okay.
I know there's been a few iterations of it, but from what I hear, just because they're at the point where they need to start putting it on the streets. So
maybe just thinking out loud, we let that happen, and then after, because it's not like we're in a well, I don't know if we're in a massive rush. I was going to say maybe after February vacation, catch that lull between February vacation and sports starting to grab all of them. But I don't know if that's for us waiting too late. I can't recall the timeframes we've been throwing out there. I mean, we've got money to raise, and
yeah, we've got more money than we probably would have expected to raise too. Because I got my take on it was, wow, that's a lot of money. You know, if we doing it via Zoom too makes it easier, to your point, for people to attend. It doesn't mean they gotta allocate the half an hour or 15 minutes drive back and forth, and what time does the meeting start and all that stuff. So it is possible we
where's the rec center?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And we give us time, right? Like, so if we put, you know, get together how we want to invite them, who we want to invite, and then target after February vacation. Again, there's that kind of slight lull before sports start.
I have one more season of spring sports. Then I retire from coaching.
That's sad.
don't leave us, Don. Don't leave us. This could be your legacy.
Okay. So we can put that in the agenda next time too, to hammer out more details maybe for next time.
Yeah.
Okay. That works. Next on the list, we got the CPA projects.
So there is a placeholder with town meeting for CPA projects. And with this, I know Jen and you and I talked about it, but I don't know if we talked about it as a full board, a full commission, and looking at the Fin courts as a potential project. I know we've been talking about Fin courts forever, I feel. So I was kind of thinking, given, you know, the light nature of, from what I'm understanding, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, with asks from CPA right now. And, you know, I think we're starting to show some good faith with the amount of money we're turning back. I was able to get some quotes for resurfacing or resealing and fixing the courts, both the skate park side, to introduce it back to a tennis court and pickleball court, or two pickleball courts like we talked about, but also address the issues in the front court, which are just as significant. So I'm just gonna pop something up once again. And here we are now. So I had New England Seal Coat come out. They gave me a rough estimate over the phone. I was able to lock them down last week and get out there in person. And so these are the options that they gave us. New England Seal Coat is pretty much the best in the game, in my opinion, when it comes to municipal courts, municipal resurfacing. So I was happy they were able to make time to come out. So there's two options to address each. So I guess the purpose of this is to talk about how much it's going to cost if we think it's worth it. And then from here, if we vote on which way we want to go, I could throw together a CPA packet or application and get that submitted. So there's two ways of addressing each court, which you'll see in both options. And really the best way I can describe this on a Zoom call is it's a membrane system. So really what it is, if you think of just 3 layers of rubber, and it's not rubber, so don't worry about that, but they're laid on top of each other. And the first layer is laid directly over the crack with 2 more laid on top, giving that bottom one the ability to move if that crack is to expand, retract, all that stuff. So there's a way of doing 3 membranes to solve the issue, or adding a 4th on it as well, just for more secured solution. You wouldn't be able to see it. It'll be painted over. It'll be flush with the surface, everything like that. But obviously, once you add another layer on, the price goes up. Each way I was insured is going to get 10, 15, 20 more years out of the court before it needs to be addressed. Both these systems are, from what I'm being told, I'm nowhere near being a professional when it comes to sealing courts, but and from my research, really the two main ways of going when it comes to fixing courts and fixing cracks. So the front tennis court is not as in rough shape as the back, but there is a significant crack going down pretty much the middle of it. It kind of started at where that net tie down is and just made its way to each side. It's something that the public has expressed to us, and I was going to try to get a picture for tonight, but it's a sheet of ice right now, so I wasn't able to. But so just to reseal and fix that court, you'll see with the three layer system and the 4 layer system, so 22 grand roughly, and then adding that second layer would be 24. Now the rust inhibitor, if you're down there, or even any court, if you see a asphalt court, you'll see there's little pockets, kind of little, it almost looks like someone took a chisel and just chiseled pieces out of it. So what that is when there's a certain material, which, historically they didn't know was in the asphalt, but they do now. There's a material used in that compound that actually rusted and rose to the top, became rust, and then it got to a point over time where it would then just pop. And the material just literally popped like a bubble, leaving a little divot. So if you go down to the fin court and you look at those courts, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of those little divots all over the court because of the asphalt that was used back in the day. When I was talking to the gentleman who was out there, apparently he came out a couple of years ago and took a look at the court, and he recognized it then, and he said it's 10 times worse now because all those rust pockets that he saw forming have all popped now. So that rust inhibitor is just an extra layer of protection to fill in those pockets that have popped, to make sure that when you paint it, then you're not painting over little divots. So no matter what, there's going to be little pockets, little holes in the cement. So adding on that product is just that $1,632 to each. So bringing, again, just for the front court with that 3 membrane system, $23,714. And then with the 4 of the $25,634, excuse me. But the old skate park is the one that obviously we've been looking at the most. And it really comes down to the same, pretty much the same exact thing. Obviously there's some more work that needs to go into it. There were rail posts that were used for skate rails. And again, same deal. There were cracks that filled with water over time in the winter, melted, froze, expanded, so on and so forth, as well as the rust popping throughout. So it's a little more rough shape. But also there is the idea that we talk about of, it needs new tennis posts. Those posts aren't there. So if we want to put a tennis net in, we need to take that into account with the sleeves. But also it comes down to the lining, extra lining to fit the pickleball courts. And if we were to bring it back as a tennis, similar to what we have at Neary, if we were to bring it back as a tennis court as well as pickleball, we could fit two pickleball courts on there, lined, painted down, and then keep it as well as a full tennis court. If we did want to go down the avenue of making it strictly pickleball, You could fit 3 pickleball courts lined side by side. So if it wanted to be a pickleball only facility, we could fit 3 courts there. And he said he could quote me on that. Obviously the cost would change because those tennis sleeves wouldn't be necessary. But it would either be we go through a non-permanent system like we're using at Neary with just heavy duty nets that you take out when you need them, set them up and go, or, then we would potentially be looking into adding in 3 sets of sleeves for pickleball. They're smaller, they're not as big, but obviously that cost would be there. But it comes down the same way of repairing the cracks in the courts with those membrane systems. So with the 3-layer and then adding in that rust solution, the tennis sleeves, and then striping for 2 pickleballs, $27,290. And then if we wanted to go the 4-layer system with all included, it'd be $30,566. So all in all, if we wanted to go just the 3 membrane system with everything included for both courts to bring them back up to speed, it'd be just $4 over, 51,000. And then if we wanted to go the 4-layer for both courts to get them up to speed, painted, ready to go, it'd be $56,200. So those are the 2 nailed down quotes, more specific quotes that I got. I will say I reached out to other companies, Cape and Island Tennis and Track, who actually did the track at Trotter. They install pickleball courts and tennis courts all over the state, all over New England. They're getting out of the municipal business where they go more private, so they weren't able to help. And outside of those 2, it was very few and far between, at least what I could find, of somebody to give us the quotes. I do have it on the docket for tomorrow for our regional meeting for Mass Park and Rec to see if anybody had recommendations of other companies, but New England Seal Coating has always been the one that everyone recommends. So
Do you know who did Westboro?
say that again, I'm sorry.
Do you know who did Westboro on Chauncey Road?
I do not. Was that a new build or a resale?
I knew maybe pre-COVID new. I mean, that you're talking still 2-3 years ago, but what they did, they are right across from their beach. I don't know if you've seen it, but like whoever did that did a phenomenal job. So I don't know if Westboro's at your meeting, but maybe if they have a reference.
Yeah, I'm close with the director over there, so I could just shoot her a text.
I honestly have no questions or comments, only to say that I feel like this is a no-brainer for the 4-layer tennis / pickleball. I don't think we can take away 2 tennis courts. We just invested in improving for the north side, and I think it's fair for the community to do the same now for the south side. And it sounds like the right opportunity. I'd be shocked if anyone had objections to this, right? For multiple reasons. So I have no questions or comments other than this sounds exciting.
I'm on board.
Do we want to go for the 4-layer just to be safe? I mean, you're buying yourself probably a couple more years.
I mean, the price difference is not significant enough to not do it.
Mhm.
I just one question about the whole thing about the rust bubbles or whatever they're called. That was really interesting. Assuming there's more lurking there, like not all have appeared, should we be protected with all these layers from other rust bubbles?
Yeah, I actually asked that exact question. And he said that you can't really stop it, but you'll be protected from it pretty much popping. There may be slight discoloration, but it won't be like a black dot on a green surface. It may just almost look like a shaded area of the paint. So it's not something that would bleed through and cause damage. He did say you may, like I said, just some kind of shaded spots or some off-putting colors, but it's not like it's going to start popping and putting divots to the brand new surface. Because the paint that they use also, it's almost sand based, so it fills in as well, just as much. So it really fills in all the pores of it. So that was a good question though, because I had the same one.
That's all I have. I lied. So if we got the funding approved, well, we don't even know when town meeting is going to be, but it has to happen before June. And then the money becomes available in July. What do you like? Do you have a target timeline in your head?
Well, it will come down to, I think you're talking to the procurement piece of it. If we can't really find anybody else in the area willing to do it, this could come down to like a sole source vendor in hopes that we could just get on their agenda and bang them out. They, like I said, they're really one of the only stops in the state. So I don't know timeline. It would be up to them when we get in, just because it comes down to approval. So
Right.
hopefully we throw it their way, say, hey, we've secured it. Just get us on your agenda. So I've seen these things happen. I mean, they're quick jobs, couple days. So it's not like it would be out of commission for weeks at a time. So.
Thank you.
And I know we had reached out to CPC chair earlier. I don't know if we actually heard it back, but I think if we get it in, especially with the town meeting, I don't know if like when the final warrant's actually going to be due. I know last year they slipped it by a month or so, the deadline, so that could help.
Yeah, that was my question, Jen. I didn't know if there was a timeline. I mean, obviously we'll get this done ASAP.
Yeah, I think it's the time. Well, I think the timeline is more the towns, but I was just looking to see. I think CPC meets next Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, next Thursday. So.
Okay.
Yep. And I know the other pending request hasn't been presented either, so it shouldn't be. Nothing has technically been presented to CPC yet for funding.
Okay. I do know our selectmen are looking to push out town meeting a little bit for safety reasons.
Yep.
So it could potentially, I mean, it depends when they close everything, but not that I think we need more time, but we'll see what happens with that.
But like, yeah, I would say if we can get that submitted and then also request to be on the agenda next week, that would help. So.
Tim, I'm sure it goes, because you said you were going to bring pictures tonight, but couldn't. I assume it goes without saying, and I can help because I'm right near there, that we'll have questions or pictures for the CPC.
Yeah. I think I have them from back when we were dealing with the skate park and everything like that. So
Right.
I just need it not to be -2 out, and I can get out and be fine.
Cool. All right. Next up on the agenda, we had a bunch of well, it was around just like our general programming and updates. I don't know if we have anything specific there or that you wanted to cover, or.
So I just had to, I'm sorry, I just had to turn my video off because I lost you guys completely. So Jen, what did you just say?
I was just saying the next up on our agenda, we have our standard like updates across our programming and the lighting projects and all of that. So I was just curious to see if Tim had updates on those or not for tonight.
Yeah, just I guess a couple ones. So the main one is spring and summer is planned. I give so much credit to Joe for getting that in and out. So mailbox, the brochure should be in your mailboxes next week. They were delivered to the mail house last Friday. They'll be processed this week and sent out. We're getting a lot of buzz already. We're getting phone calls asking when camp is gonna open for registration. So anybody watching out there in YouTube land or Zoom land, the brochure is available online, southboroughRec.com. It's right there on our main page. So, and that has programming from spring all the way through August, as well as not wrap programs, but the wrap sessions with the wrap dates and registration dates to be aware of, as well as all of our special events. So kudos to Joe on that one, and we're excited for it. It should be a really fun summer. But February 1st is when registration opens for camp and all things spring and summer. We got some new stuff in there. We also have some stuff we did not announce that we're working on, kind of some special announcement stuff. So it should be a fun seasons coming up. So we're excited for that. but that was really it with, programming on there. We do have the Gobble Wobble. Gobble Wobble was tremendously successful, over 900 registered runners. Perfect weather, not perfect attendance, but everyone who showed up was super happy to be there and looked good in their bright pink shirts. So it was really, really good. We were in and out of Trotter, but we were home by 11:30 that morning, a little before noon. So it was good. So hats off to the friends as always for putting on a stellar event, and also hats off to them for leaning on us for anything they needed. I'm glad they could utilize us as a resource and we could help in any way possible. Joe and I were there the night before and the day of, and we were more than happy to. So that was great. But when it comes down to the projects, Mooney is what it is. I gave that update with baseball. Like I said, we were punted back down to the engineer. So we're hoping now that we're with the guy with the boots on the ground that we're going to get somewhere. So we'll see on that. With the Neary project, I know funding was an issue that we've been talking about the last couple months because of that overage with the cost of National Grid being much higher than we were quoted. And I know, Jen, you went to CPC to kind of ask what our options were. Didn't, unfortunately, nothing against them, but just bylaw wise and parameters around what could be spent out of what. We weren't able to really get anywhere with that. So I asked the friends after the Gobble Wobble if they would be interested. And I just want you to know the friends decided to pick up the entire bill for National Grid. So they completely took that off of our plate, which was absolutely tremendous. So over 12 grand on that bill. So that brings us right back to where we were. So that's been paid, sent out, and we're back on track with Neary to get those polls going. When we did talk to Dana about the Mooney one, we were there on site with him as well with Neary. So we're hoping that if he's dealing with Mooney, he can deal with Neary, and we can start kind of just check both these boxes off. But really just a huge thank you to the friends. I said it a million times to Jolene, is just a tremendous help. I think it just helps us more than I think they understand, and especially with this project, it's going to be felt. So just happy to report that we're back to where we were. Finances are not an issue anymore when it comes to that project. So we're good to go there. And then Colander, we have a pre-construction meeting next week with Alan to get things going from North Turf. There was some discussion already about cost of supplies and some change orders already coming into play. So I know Jen and you and I talked about that. We're going to have, I think, a more final picture of what that's going to be next week. So the cost is most likely going to go up from his estimates for when he talked to me. But what he estimated to us is still significantly under what was budgeted. So I'm not worried when it comes to that. And he would still be the lowest bidder even with these change orders. So we'll see for sure after meeting with him with that pre-construction meeting where we'll be at. I know, Jen, I did float a number. I don't want to float that here again. I just want to be sure before we put that out. But again, we're going to be well under budget, so I have no fear of that. It's just going to be a little higher than what we originally thought, just because of supplies and what we're doing. So we're going to meet with him next week so he can get his ducks in a row, so we can start pulling any permits he needs to and start ordering what he needs to, just because of lead times, in hopes that first point of when we're comfortable, he can get out and get that field done, so we can get as much rest on it as possible, so we can probably bring it up spring of next year for use. So that's rolling. That's rolling in the background. Any questions on that one? That's more new. No.
Yep, that's exciting.
Cool. And then Lundblad, I know we talked about a little. Oh, we didn't talk about. I know because we didn't have a meeting. So I started digging into Lundblad as we wanted to do, and it turns out that there were plans already to about 75% completion about fixing that field, and that was bringing it back to player grade, bringing it back to just a regular grass field, and back up, addressing the hump, addressing the cap, addressing what would be needed to work on a field, given the status of what the field was, using it as the town dump. But at the same time, I think there's a feeling from conversation with us that just bringing it back to a soccer field, I don't know how much good that's going to do. So there is the idea of maybe repurposing that field. I know we spoke offline, a couple of us, could half of it be kept as a field and the other half used as a dog park, or some sort of other recreational area. That field is really an auxiliary field. It's not something that when permits go out, everybody claws at it to use. It's an overflow field. A lot of our not usual youth groups use it. A lot of our club teams from out of town kind of use it just because it's such a massive space. So I think there's some opportunity to be had there. So I guess now that we're all together, I didn't know, at least with Rachel and with Kristen, I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on that.
Well, there's actually a post today from Julie Connolly, who is a new dog owner, and she said, my dog won't go outside because their salt is hurting his feet. And a bunch of people jumped in, right? So clearly tons of dog owners suffering from this problem in the winter. And then someone said, you need to go over to Hopkinton State Park because they don't plow all the fields, all the roads. And so it's a great place to go because you don't have that, that issue of the salt. And I thought that was kind of timely. I mean, clearly everybody got a dog during COVID, except for us, because I haven't broken down my husband yet. So I still love the idea of a dog park, and, we don't want them on the fields, but we see them on the fields because they don't really have anywhere else to go. Hopkinton State Park is convenient for some, but not for most. So, especially this time of year, I think it could be a real asset. So, it'd be interesting to see what could be done. Part of me is like, if we don't need the field, and I guess that's a big question mark to you, Tim, I don't know anything about dog parks. I don't know how big they typically are. I don't know what a small one is or a big one is, but I definitely would be interested in learning more.
Well, I think to your point, Kristen, like anything that we would do here wouldn't necessarily be or require permanence, right? Like what you're basically looking for is some sort of fence or some sort of, barrier or divider, right? So that you've got the folks that can use the dog area and you retain a portion of the field for field use, right? Maybe there's, an allocation of some picnic tables or a sitting area. Like you said, I did get a dog, but my dog's afraid of other dogs. So the thought of taking her to a dog park would probably give her a heart attack. So she's 10 pounds and would probably be buried in a hole at some point. But I imagine you could do something nice where I understand from other folks who do use them that it's a social event, not only for the dogs, but for the dog owners, right? So if you were to provide some seating and basic amenities or whatever, you could probably do it without hard construction or permanence. And if there's a field need change in the future, you haven't committed yourself to something that couldn't be restored.
Yeah.
Is this an opportunity to re-engage with Activitas to see if they could do kind of like what could we do up there? Like what size field could we keep? And if we were to put like a dog park on part of it, like what would that look like? And maybe have them scope something like that out for us?
Or the equivalent of Activitas for dog parks. Sort of like, how you found somebody for the tennis courts. I wonder if there's like a dog park, specialist.
I may or may not have a phone call with Meg again from Activitas on Tuesday proactively, hoping you were going to go that route. So just to gauge again what it would take if they could map that out. So
do you need
it was more so trying to think. I do think that we should retain some of it as a field. I think it's important, at least for youth soccer, to have that overflow space. But also those random groups in town, like lacrosse, like central lacrosse and stuff, who need that field. or who asked for that field, who requests that field. But also general population, general public. That's a field that a lot of kids in town use.
Well,
Instead of going
if I think
down.
back to what you shared with us, or what we saw, I think from the work you dug up, you know, you could probably hive off that field to the section that's already in pretty good shape, right? Like, because the dogs don't care if it's got undulations. I mean, they probably prefer it. And so you could actually, I would be shocked if we couldn't figure out a way to split it in such a way that you know it doesn't require that much investment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I thought in our facilities study, we were all kind of surprised to see that that was actually one of the more heavily used fields, if I remember correctly, because I think we were all a little surprised. And I will say in soccer season, I feel like I always see people up there, whether they've gotten through Tim or not. I don't know, but I feel like I see people up there all the time. I've got a question that might be.
Oh, hey, what,
naive.
before you jump, I did Google, you know, do some Google work here just to feel like I'm contributing. Framingham just put a dog park in last year, Tim, or this year, June 11th. I'm seeing an article here that the Framingham Parks and Recreations Department just unveiled designs for their first dog park. I don't know if you got a contact over there.
Sure do.
Now, I don't know if I would want to put as much as they want to put into it, but maybe there's something we could steal from them.
How much did they invest? Does it say?
Total cost of the park will be $262,000. Majority of these costs will be covered by donations from the Stanton Foundation and a community development block grant. I don't know what those are, but it's a very nice. It's on Dudley Road. I don't know who that is. Very lovely design.
And I'm gonna have to go look. So I have a question that might be stupid, but I'll ask it.
No such
Are there
thing.
any are there any, you're getting a bunch of dogs together. Are there any different insurance considerations?
It's a good question. So that wasn't a stupid question, Kristen. Good job. I'm sure that's something we could ask. I think that's a valid question. I'm not positive on that. So could be an at your own risk type facility, as many facilities are. But it's something to look into. Yeah.
Oh, hey, so a couple of things to keep in mind as I read more here, Tim. So shade, benches, handicap accessible water stations.
For the dogs or
I imagine that maybe there are dogs that are service dogs and that may come with folks that require accessibility. But I'm sure we have ADA as part of all projects now that we probably have to check boxes on. And then they're going to have teeter-totters and balance beams. I do like there's actually a small and a large dog area, so that actually is a nice thing. I'm not saying we need the teeter-totter, but I wouldn't mind a small and a large dog area.
Yeah.
Oh, this is fun.
The new pickleball done.
Yeah. Hey, we're just trying to you know, hey, and I saw Tim, I don't know if it was on the agenda, but I did look, I know that there was a survey that was done in town and it looked like the rec, I know there wasn't a lot of responses, I don't think on the rec side, but the rec responses look pretty good if you looked at that.
Sure did. Yeah. I think the only concern that survey said was not enough adult-based programs, which
we're working on it. Pickleball, come on.
Working on it.
Dog walking.
Yeah. It's actually one of our new programs Joe put together. Is going to do a women's pickup recreational softball league. So hopefully we'll capture some piece from there. So
is he doing I know we don't like when the lights go up and get going, like will there be like a nighttime pickleball pickup kind of thing? I know the only time it happens right now is like during the day, which is no good, but like
yeah, he's chomping at the bit for that one, waiting for those to go. So
what about wrap? Did he decide to do a pickleball wrap?
We have an instructor that we're talking to. Very demanding guy, so I don't think it's going to work out. But we're talking to some of our usual vendors because we also want to utilize the volleyball court and everything like that outside. So we're going to see if they can they can throw together a program for us, because it probably won't even be next session just because the next session starts late February.
Right.
So probably the spring session.
Cool.
Awesome.
I told Joe to learn pickleball and teach it. He said, okay.
Awesome. All right. So then the ADA study. So I feel like that was the novel that Tim so graciously read through and summarized for us into that Excel file, which was still a novel to read, but
So what we need to do from the guidance that we received is kind of put forth either how we plan on addressing said novel, or how we or the steps we want to take, I guess. Pretty much, can we do it in-house, or is there another method we need to go against or go towards with everything? So the ADA kind of wants our recommendation on how we want to move forward with all that being. I'm happy to kick it off because I got it all in front of me if you want.
yeah, I felt like there's things like, I mean, I got a kick out of reading to my kids the measurements between the like inside the porta potties that were taken and stuff like that. But I feel like some of those are like, okay, well, if all the porta potties are wrong, then we just need to talk to the vendor that's supplying them and figure out how do we get ADA compliant ones, or like, how come all their porta potties are the wrong measurements? Like, this feels like there's just like a disconnect between, actually, I think one of my questions is that around ADA, there's like, this is the bare minimum and this is the desired state. Do we know if these reports are all desired states or are they bare minimums? Because it feels like there's like this wiggle room, and while we want to be at the desired state, not all of them can get there. So for us to be able to figure out what, like, does an inch here or there matter more than something else, or how do we prioritize this?
I think these are desired because this is my assumption, because I think if a hired gun comes in to do this evaluation, they're not going to give us minimum. They're going to give us ideal. So my guess is this is ideal. And I think I went back and I watched that meeting when the report was presented, and they made very clear that we're in great shape. It's not like the town overall is really in bad shape. I think what he said is we were better than many. So I do believe that. So I believe that this is desired state. My only caution on a lot. So first off, with just for instance, for the porta potties, it sounds good, but that's a procured contract. So it's not something that we can necessarily call up and be like, hey, sorry, you're done. We're going to go with somebody else. So things like that. And
yeah, or even like
there's a pretty good chance on that one. I mean, I don't know exactly, like that service line, you'd be surprised what you can do in some of those service lines, and especially if it's truly not the minimum standard for ADA, because there might be a clause in there that says this should meet the minimum legal requirements, blah 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 blah. And my suspicion is it's USS that probably is providing the porta potties, which is a company right here in Westboro. So I think that's one where if that's the challenge, you put that right on the vendor. You say, look, I need ADA compliant porta potties, or we're moving on, and there are other vendors that'll do the work.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an easy one. Like that's.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest one, but that's also not recreation. So, I mean, that's public works.
Okay.
So, so I think that's an easy one. I think parking signage and striping of the lots for handicap spaces, I think that's a relatively easy one. Something that we could probably handle on our end, just getting the signs and having DPW install them where necessary. They stripe our parking lot as well, so I'm sure they could just stripe some spaces. I do think it gets tricky when it comes to certain facilities, i.e. 9/11, just because it's DCR property. It's not, that's the parking lot in general is not paved, just because of what we can do there. So I think there's some restrictions that should be made clear specifically to that. to that facility when it comes to the parking lot concerns and accessibility from the parking lot. And then drinking fountains was another common one. You know, I've been here almost 3 years now. I don't think they've ever been on since I've been here. So I think Fayetteville was for a little bit, and then winterized, never turned back on because of everything. So kind of like what we talked about with Woodward, it's a luxury more than a, you know, a need. So does the town want to invest in replacing these fountains, or do we just want to remove them? So
That's where, I mean, like, we have the infrastructure there. It'd be kind of disappointing to rip it out, but that's like one of the ones that I wonder, like, does it meet ADA compliance? And if so, then it should be fine. If we are going to go through and like, if we move forward and overhaul Choate with all that, then maybe we put in a better solution there as we do that. But I don't know. You know, that's where I'd hate to rip stuff out that already exists just because it's not compliant or it's not the ideal standard.
I would agree. Like, can we just leave them off until, to Jen's point, such a time that we want to turn them back on, at which point we'll pay to make them compliant?
So I guess like, so I know they want to know like the plan of what we're going to do. I feel like the parking signage and the striping is fine. But other ones, they all kind of felt like if we're going to go in and go do work, then like, yes, we'll like upgrade. Like if we go Lundblad in the dog park up there, we're going to trigger and have to do actually quite a bit probably up there to make that ADA compliant, which we should. But otherwise it's hard to kind of justify this like multi-million-dollar price tag to go do pieces of it, but then have the rest of the place like not actually upgraded. Or yeah.
yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. I think we're already talking about it too, of all these improvements that we're doing. Even with when I was down with the tennis courts at Finn, it's like, we'll bring these up to speed, but I know that there's going to be some, you know, the walkway needs to be addressed.
Walkway and yep.
To get back in it. So, you know, moving forward, having that lens of ADA, I just think is a no-brainer, and something I think we're doing already. I think in the back of our minds, just not as prominent. My biggest thing with, if you look, you know, it's a long report, but almost every single facility has the same exact thing. You know, with, you know, Mooney Field has some different ones with a snack shack and things like that. But it's, you know, surfacing with playgrounds and as accessible routes with fields. And so those were the two that I was kind of digging in. I mean, I think with the field accessibility, I mean, we're talking about installing, you know, walkways around entireties of fields. I mean, you know, it may not be a big deal at Petrie, but when you're looking at Finn and at Mooney and at all those fields to get to the backfields, I mean, that's going to be a significant investment, but also not something we could just do given the wetlands around it. So I just think there's other layers of, I guess, just so I'm not, you know, dragging it on. My concern is taking the report at face value, especially with the costs. That's what I'm concerned with the committee. I don't want them to just be a knee-jerk reaction. We have a number now, let's do it. You know, just because 9/11 has restrictions, just because, again, Finn is surrounded by wetlands as well as some other fields with Trottier and you know, just having some restrictions on really understanding what we can do, like where materials, things of that, but also with the surfacing. I kind of dug into that just because, you know, me and playgrounds. I looked at just the art center and Fayetteville because I think those were kind of mentioned the most when it came to updating the surfacing. There was two pieces of it. One, I don't believe the report was correct I think we talked about this. The surfacing that we have in there is not wood chips. It's engineered wood fiber. It's made specifically for playgrounds, and it's passed inspection 2 years in a row from our inspectors. But if they are looking to make it the accessible surfacing, you know, the rubberized surface like we put in at the townhouse, the cost is astronomically more than what they're asking. And I know Bonnie shared plans with Fayetteville of what the intended design was going to be, and you know, her hope to bring that back up. But I really went into it. So it's about $15 a square foot for that rubber surface. We're just talking material. We're not talking labor. So just for the Arts Center in Fayetteville, it would cost us $400,000 on the low end just to replace that surfacing. But again, you're not taking into account the drainage underneath it. You're not taking into account the labor that it's going to be. So, you know, if the town wants to throw this on as well with other playgrounds in town, with the schools and everything like that, like you said, Jen, we're $1 million plus, if not more, you know, to bring these all up to speed. But also with the Arts Center, we have no idea if that's going to be the town's in the next 3 years. With some of the schools, I can tell you those need to be ripped out in the next 3 to 5 years. They should be. They're going to fail inspection eventually.
Yes.
So again,
one other thing, I feel like the rubber surfacing comes up over and over on playgrounds. So yes, rubber surfacing gives more accessibility, but it's actually a higher risk for injury and falls.
Yeah,
so there's a balancing, right? So it's actually what we have there is actually the safest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we need to like basically, rather than present a plan, prepare a response, you know, which is slightly different in terms of everything, kind of summarizing everything we've just been saying, making the points that you made, you know, Kim, to your point, articulating that this is something that we think about with every new project. Some decisions have been made in regards to the playground because of what you just pointed out, Jen. And then that's one thought. And then second, I'd be curious what like John Parent, or I mean, we're not the only ones in this position where, you know, improvements are being suggested that amount to millions of dollars that don't exist. So I'm curious what the response is of other, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Just other areas of the government. You know, John Parent comes to mind. He must have a list a mile long as well.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. I mean, they're doing everything they can in-house, doorknobs, pretty much doorknobs. They're replacing a lot of doorknobs, signage, things like that. But you know, he recognizes when it comes to walkways and steps and railings that it's you know, I don't want to put a price tag on it, but it's outside of their abilities, and that's where the idea of, you know, does the town package this together and bid it out? And handle it that way? Is it done in phases, again, with a professional behind it to really actually dive into and see, you know, what's needed? Right. So, you know, that's also true. I think, you know, it just dawned on me, kind of going back to the question of, is this the ideal standard, or is this the bare minimum standard? You know, when you look at Fayetteville, half of the equipment there is ADA. It was built the way it's built to be accessible. With that, especially with the main structure, you know, coming from the handicap area, having a walkway straight through it, having the handicap ramp going up, and being able to use
and that's where I question it, because it's saying like that the ramps are wrong and all this and that, and like we literally bought ADA compliant structures like less than 3 years ago. So and I know it changes and evolves over time, but we just made that investment there. So do we just put maybe, like, I like the idea, Kristen, of like preparing a response. Is the response like, are there some quick wins that we can do, like around the parking signage or striping or whatever? But then the rest of it, I think the biggest question comes to, where's the funding come from? Because this is not a revolving expense for most of them, at least. And then I feel like it should be a plan of, if we were to go back and look at our capital plan about when we thought we were going to touch fields, can we address it when, like, along those lines, that all of those numbers would also have to address the ADA compliance issues.
Yep.
way ahead of you. Well,
Ah, look at that. I love it.
I figured everything was pretty self-explanatory. So I threw together a draft of it. It's pretty much addressing caution more than what we're going to do
Right.
with the report. Outside of, like you said, restroom facilities, that's a conversation with Public Works and procurement issue. Parking signage we could probably do within. And then I put things like picnic tables and benches. Like, I agree with what he said. However, almost all of our picnic tables are not mounted, so things can be moved. A lot of what was some of the reports that were viewed and written up were, picnic tables were on the grass because they were left over from summer nights type thing. So, a lot of the stuff that was viewed, while some of it I agreed with, some things shouldn't have been positioned the way they were. Some of it was just temporary, and it's more of a, we need to be more mindful, at events if, we need to put tables down. Benches, I think we kind of joked about it once, but I was at the same time low-key serious. It's, why spend tens of thousands of dollars to make an ADA compliant ramp or grading up to a bench at a playground on top of the hill when it may make more sense just to take the bench out,
Yep. 100%.
instead of spending the money. So,
Yep.
And then same with the drinking fountains and stuff like that. But I pretty much put in what we talked about with playground surfacing, field accessibility, DCR restrictions, and pretty much of cautioning not to take the cost estimates at face value. I think it would be worth getting somebody in for hard numbers, like an actual landscape architecture firm, when it comes to accessibility routes on the fields. Kind of going about it the right way to find a right number instead of just asking for what was recommended.
Yep.
But I think talking tonight, also understanding is this the ideal situation? Are we actually meeting the standard? I think that's some legwork on my end, to see if what we have is actually acceptable. And I do like the idea of integrating it in our next capital plan, which we have put forward to capital to get on their agenda. That's going to be coming down the pipeline in a couple of years, 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
But in the meantime, like we said, if we're doing Choate, it's going to be part of it. If we do Lundblad, I'm sure it'll be part of it. If we're going to do Finn, it's going to be part of it.
And that just makes sense. I mean, you don't just do, to your point, a little piece of a larger plan. Inevitably, we'll have to end up redoing it.
Yeah.
That's my concern. You go and do these like point in time things, we're probably going to change the footprint or mess with it.
Mhm.
It's going to be a waste.
Mhm.
So I guess I'll update this and I can just send it to you guys to take a peek.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, so then we have meeting minutes to approve from November 9th. And these were the ones that Rachel sent around.
Yes.
So I need a motion.
I just gotta find them again because I did have one question based on something Don said. Should we be, maybe I missed it. Just going back to the minutes about the Choate Field study. The only thing I was thinking based on something Don said, and I'm just making sure I'm not missing it, but oh no, you have it there. I was gonna say, we should be very explicit that we did not agree with the netting or the foul pools, but you do say we'll revert new draft without netting or foul pools. So never mind.
Is the actual documents they provided also being available? Yes.
Yeah.
I think I asked that because I was like frantically trying to get everything down, but it was a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right, I make a motion to approve.
I second the motion.
right, roll call vote.
O'Day, yes.
Dumont, yes.
The vote, yes.
Hanson, yes. Cool. Anything else?
I have one really quick one. Master plan, we're wrapping up hopefully tomorrow. And hold on, I had an email open that I have to reference. So Judith has been awesome. And she came back over the weekend or on Friday with a couple questions, and Tim very kindly supplied me with the answers. So one thing I just wanted to make sure we revisited, we've talked about this at length, is that she questioned the community pool. She said over 50% of the comments in the recreation section of the vision survey related to a community pool, but the MPC agreed not to include this as a recommendation based on feedback from the Recreation Commission. Can you let me have an official position on this topic? i.e. why are we not including it in the master plan that we can include in the report? And then Tim nicely recapped the reasons we had given them. One was given the amount of privately owned pools in town, as well as the population that vacates the town during the summer, it would be a hard sell. There are higher priorities of facility needs, such as an all-encompassing recreation center with gymnasium space and turf facilities to meet higher needs. And now apparently a bunch of ADA stuff too. And then if a pool was to be built, significant budget considerations would also need to be made with town budget support around maintenance costs, staffing, full-time and part-time, and land acquisition. I still stand by all of that. I wasn't sure. And I mean, I'll let you guys comment in a second, but she said, can you let me have an quote unquote official position on this topic? So I don't know if that means they prefer us to vote on it, but I'll stop there and open it up to comment.
I think you could add maintenance costs and liability risk as well, probably to the list, but I would have no problem giving you an official position on this.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess just to cement our feelings about it, can we take a vote?
Yeah.
I thought it seems a little weird, but because she put official, I just want to make sure I'm covering my bases for tomorrow. So I'll make a motion to stand by our decision to recommend against including goal of a pool in the master plan committee proposal.
Second.
Roll call vote.
O'Day, yes, or well, yeah, no. Yes, agree with your motion.
Yeah.
Agree with your motion, yeah.
Dumont agrees with the motion.
Laval, yes. No
Hanson,
pool.
yes. Cool.
Tim, thanks again for that quick response.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So then our next meeting, second Tuesday in February, is February 8th. Does that still work for folks?
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
And while it's fresh, I guess if anybody has questions with baseball, if you could send them to me.
Yeah, if you could send that presentation when you get it.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Awesome.
All right, stay
Thanks.
warm, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ew.
definitely.
Thanks for
healthy.
everything.
So.
Really appreciate it. Have a
See
good
ya.
one.
Good night.
Thank you.